Yo guys, Punkrat with another video. So going back to vanilla with the release of Classic WoW is a true nostalgic dream. And with that, I've been constantly reminiscing about the good old days for the last little while. As a little 12-year-old punk back in those days, I used to look up to a bunch of legends of the game. I was obsessed with these guys. These guys were, in a lot of ways, the pioneers to video game content creation that we see today. In those days, we had Warcraft movies, which I'm sure a lot of you guys, a lot of you vanilla veterans are aware of. And we also had Google videos, which, Google videos unfortunately got axed when Google bought YouTube. So a lot of those legendary videos from back in the day were lost in the process. I've been concepting different ideas of how I could cover some of these dudes from back in the day. And I'm gonna start off with this video. I'm calling this series Legends of Vanilla. So we can celebrate the pioneers of Warcraft in the eve of the release of Classic. This video will briefly go over some of the most well-known legends of vanilla from back in the day. I plan on making this a series, so if I don't cover someone that you feel should have definitely been on this list, I'll get to that person on the next one for sure. I'm also thinking of following it up with maybe going into some lesser known legends from back in the day, like guys who were on specific servers that maybe weren't out there in the public but were definitely legends of the game from back then. Maybe doing entire segments on some of those guys that were, under the radar. So if you guys have any submissions of legends that I should cover, hit me up with a comment. There's so many guys from back in the day that have been forgotten throughout the years. But without further ado, here we go. The Legends of Vanilla. Let's get it. First legend that we got is the Lord of Arathi Basin himself, a trailblazer in the PvP scene from the very beginning. His name is Pat. Pat, the rank 14 Torn Warrior from Arthas server in the guild Proven. Back when what server you were from was actually a relevant factor, beautiful thing, isn't it? This man came out with one of the first legendary PvP montages of vanilla back in the day. Pat was one of the original, truly try-hard pre-made gods back in 2005, 2006. Most people didn't really grind hard for consumables for BGs back in the day. Pat, on the other hand, while he didn't have engineering at the time, was always queuing BGs with a whole load of consumables, alongside his rank 14 gear. This was such an early time in WoW's history that sort of power on display in his montage was almost unthinkable. This video, still to this day, is one of the most viewed vanilla montages in the history of the game, with over 1 million views on the YouTube re-upload alone, not counting the original upload itself. Pat was an absolute raid boss in Arathi Basin, running around pounding dudes into the ground like a piece of pork schnitzel. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that Pat was a trailblazer. Montages were everything before the age of YouTube and Twitch. This guy inspired so many young WoW players to aspire to the same level of greatness within the game. In fact, the person who re-uploaded his montage to YouTube even wrote in the description how Pat inspired him to grind to rank 14, and some of the top comments that you see mirror that same notion. This man was an absolute legend in the scene, and I'm sure if you ask any WoW veteran around, who was PvP Pat, they'll definitely know exactly who he is. Next legend on the list, we've got Dysphoria, the female night elf hunter from the server Frostmourne. This guy was a special character, in a totally different way, sure, but just as awesome as all the other guys on this list. Dysphoria was the creator of an incredibly popular video series back in the day called Hunter vs. World. In my last video, I mentioned that night elf hunter that used to do those solo runs and upload them in 240p resolution. I forgot the name of the hunter itself or the videos, but with some research I ended up finding it once again. Hunter vs. World was awesome. Dysphoria would essentially spend most of his time in-game attempting to create hunter-specific strategies for soloing 5-man dungeons or other interesting challenges around the world. I'm not sure if Dysphoria created the Marathon solo farm run that we commonly see today, but the one farm run that I definitely know he brought to the WoW community, which is also heavily utilized still in 2019 from classic hunters, is the solo DM North Tribute run. The DM North Tribute run is when you clear DM or you kill the last boss in DM without killing the ogre guards throughout the dungeon. The reward for doing it are 3 world buffs that you get from the unkilled guards after you claim kingship of the ogres, and a chest of treasures which drops mana pots, health pots, and a bunch of well-itemized blues. It's an extremely lucrative run, obviously, if you could solo it. And lo and behold, Dysphoria did just that in actual retail classic, shocking the community with his potential to break the mold of what people thought was actually possible within the game. He would use traps, pet aggro, pet control, scatters, feign deaths in line with smart pathing to cheese his way through dungeons, and then use unique kiting strategies to solo bosses that he thought he was able to solo. This guy was an absolute legend in his own respect. He was doing things other people couldn't even dream of or wouldn't even be able to come up with even if they tried it, during that time. He was so ahead of his time, and it's crazy to think that people are still doing some of his runs as gold farms to this day, almost 15 years later. Dysphoria is clearly a legend of vanilla. Okay, next up, we've got the one who cannot be shattered, breaker of the blade, Mr. Unbreakable. Total legend. The fear he instilled in his opponents' hearts was immense. This man is the reason why people froth over two-handed enhancement shaman in vanilla. Alongside with Pat PvP, Unbreakable released one of the earlier viral PvP montages of the time. Cut from Wind Fury proc to Wind Fury proc, showcasing such incredible, unthinkable power, unimaginable power. As a kid, there were montages that I used to love because of their creativity or the editing or skill, but Pat PvP and Unbreakable, those two montages were more about power, just pure power on display. For the average vanilla player, this sort of power was unimaginable back in those days, and that's what made these videos so damn incredible, seeing the potential of what you can achieve in vanilla. Unbreakable is absolutely, without a doubt, a legend of vanilla, a historical forefather of the PvP scene. And one thing that I can guarantee you is there will be at least one orc shaman on each server come classic named Unbreakable. Without a doubt, he's a legend and his name still lives on to this day. So we got another man here who falls into a similar category. A man with so many fanboy clones all across the realms of World of Warcraft, mages who will name themselves after his namesake. Probably even to such a significant extent that they'll be misspelling his name or adding letters, adding X at the end or QD at the end, just to pay homage to his greatness. We have, I'm sure you guessed it, Virna, the undead mage from the server Sylvanas on the EU servers. Not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, Virna. I've heard people say Vertny, but that definitely seems wrong, right? I'm assuming that's wrong. Virna, this guy is probably the most skilled PvPer on this list from back in the day. He's a shining example of why the mage is the master class, the Mega Brain 200 IQ class. Virna is one of the original engineering abusing demigod PvP legends from back in the day. He pioneered the vanilla engineering PvPers we see today that are basically Inspector Gadget cosplayers queuing into Warsong all day with every pot flask engineering tool known to mankind.
We like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind, because it's more inclusive.
He led the way to the PvP meta that we see in today's vanilla PvP scene, without a doubt. Vert is a hero in Sweden. He's what Michael Jordan is to Chicago. He's what Usain Bolt is to Jamaica, what Justin Bieber is to Canada, those filthy Canadians and their beaver fever. He's the Swedish World of Warcraft Viking legend. This guy was the 1vx god, 1v2, 1v3, 1v4, he just made it happen. Dude was a prodigy for the time. He showed people exactly how it's done. And people still use his tactics even to this day, like his Frost Nova into a grenade shatter combo tactic. Virna is without a doubt one of the most popular and well-respected WoW legends in the history of the game. Him and Kungen should team up and run for office in Sweden. I bet you they would win and make Sweden great again for the foreseeable future. As a young mage, back in those times, he was one of the most inspiring players to me. I learned so much from watching him play. Next up, we've probably got the most famous player on this entire list. This man became not only a living legend within the game, but one of the first living memes in the history of the game, and maybe one of the first on the internet in general. A man who transcended the game in so many ways. He's known even far out of the bounds of Azeroth. We've got the one and only Leroy Dragons! Leroy was the man behind the viral video that took the internet by storm back in vanilla, where their guild was seemingly having a strategy huddle planning out how they were going to attack the Whelp Room in UBRS, when he out of nowhere yelled, "Leroy
Dragons!
And charged into the room, stepping on all of the eggs, spawning countless whelps and wiping the raid. This man went viral before viral was a thing. It's just sad that there wasn't really a way to capitalize on that viral nature, on that success back in those days. We know that Blizzard has made a Hearthstone card of him and put his body in the modern game in the revamped version of UBRS. But honestly, Blizzard should have written him a big fat check after that video. The video was such a phenomenon, so far-reaching beyond the scope of WoW, that I'm sure it brought tons of people to the game who were intrigued by the video itself. You know, the group of guys huddled, planning their next step, the ventrilo element, talking to each other within the game, the organic, funny moment within the game. You know, organic, it's not exactly organic because the video itself was staged, but you get what I mean. Funny things happen all the time organically in these kinds of games. Leroy was an ambassador for the game, and to be honest, he should have gotten a corporate sponsorship deal with Blizzard and become their Jared of Subway. You know, like Jared is, oh wait, no, bad example. But you get what I mean. Leroy never got his just due. Justice for Leroy, ladies and gentlemen.
At least I have chicken.
Next up, we have the game breaker himself, the man who showed exactly how possible impossible was. His name was Mute, undead rogue and creator of the video series World of Roguecraft. This video series started out with a machinima style intro, a conversation between Mute on his rogue and his warlock friend in Orgrimmar, where he was playing a character of a rogue who was just recently nerfed and complaining about how he couldn't beat people anymore. He then went on to showcase exactly how good rogues were if played right, equipping statless white gear while half naked and using low-level white daggers. He then proceeded to 1v1 rank 14 players in full gear, including Maydai, without being touched basically. Using full control combos, double blind, double stun rotations, resetting CDs with preparation, resetting DRs with a blind into a sap, completely controlling the 1v1. Eviscerate doesn't do weapon damage or base weapon damage like most strikes in vanilla. So that was the core of how he was killing people outside of using bleeds. Guaranteeing a crit on his Eviscerate by using cold blood, which was basically how he was killing people with white daggers. It was a really special video that inspired a lot of the rogues that we see today. It showed people the potential of the class when played properly. He was a true pioneer of that class. He led the way for pretty much all of the rogues that we see today, and his strategies are clearly still viable and used in the vanilla community. He showcased to the world the so-called infinite stun lock combo, which allowed him to kill fully geared people basically naked. Okay, so last but certainly not least on this list, we have one of the longest lasting members of the WoW content creating community, Mr. Incredible himself, Mr. Incredible Warrior Tricks himself, Mr. Swiffer WetJet himself, Swifty. A lot of people who follow Swifty nowadays as a content creator might not even know about his vanilla days, known his roots as a World of Warcraft entertainer. And some of you may think, he's a geezer nowadays. But in vanilla, Swifty was in his prime. This dude was a trendsetter in the PvP scene back in the day. He figured out so many little innovative tools, gadgets, bugs, tricks in the game and combined them all into one glorious PvP montage where he showcased all of them. Not to mention he was a Grand Marshal, true dedication to the game. He was a special cat, and he also paved the way for WoW content creators in general as the years went by, building a model on how they could take it to that next level and make something that's long-term and sustainable. He's been a successful content creator in the scene now for over 10 years, which is incredible. That's a career. Since the earlier days of YouTube's growth, and he was one of the first video game entertainers. Swifty was a legend and still is a legend. Respect the man, respect the name. And if you're rolling on his server, don't steal his name, guys. Come on, let the man recreate his Night Elf Warrior with his old namesake. Yeah, right, like that's ever gonna happen. Poor Swiffer WetJet. Alrighty, boys, that's it for this one. That was a blast from the past, wasn't it? I really enjoyed this one. These guys were my idols as a young kid. That may sound corny, but it's actually true. I looked up to every single one of these guys. They were legends of their respective servers, which was kind of a really cool aspect of WoW from back in the day also, wasn't it? It was a special time in the history of gaming. This sort of phenomenon will probably not repeat itself in the same sort of way. But I think with the return of Classic, you too can become a legend of your own server. Hopefully this video inspired you to aspire to that goal. And if you're the kind of guy that's looking to become a hero amongst peasants on your realm, then Godspeed to you, brother. So guys, as you know, my channel's been growing a lot lately. You know, I've really been pushing to create content on a more consistent basis. I've been working around the clock lately to just release video every other day, back to back to back. I've been working like an absolute madman lately. So if you guys want to keep seeing me create this kind of content and potentially up the quality level even more, I started a little shop to help fund that. So I designed very simple t-shirts with my Punkrat logo on it. I revamped the rat a little bit, you know, kept the design really simple without, you know, my channel name or anything corny like that, just, you know, not to be too overbearing. I feel like it's a really cool t-shirt, you know, sweater, whatever, that can actually be worn stylishly. It's really punk rock, I think. So if you guys want to help sustain my channel, you know, buying some of my merch would go a really, really long way to help me do that. And I also made a Streamlabs link where you guys can donate to me, you know, almost like a little tip jar if you guys are feeling a bit generous. I really want to keep doing this full on. So if you guys want the videos to keep pumping, that's the best way to help me out. Anyways, with that said, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill, soldiers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.